Hi, everybody. Welcome to our podcast. We have our guest, Kristine, with us today. Thank you so much for joining us.
You're very welcome. My pleasure. Hi, I'm Kristine Al Haris. I'm a Supplier Diversity Manager with Sodexo, digital nomad, hopefully forever, married to a wonderful husband who lives overseas. And my life journey right now is trying to find out a way to be successful, but live under the same roof as my husband.
Kristine, my name is Dan. It's a pleasure to meet you, and I will get to know you along with our audience here tonight as we ask you questions and you answer them. My first question is just total curiosity. Your last name, where does it come from, and where's the proper pronunciation?
Oh, Lord. Okay. I would love to say it correctly. I'm going to do my best. So first of all, my last name is Jordanian. My husband is from Jordan. He's a beautiful Jordanian man. And I'm going to do the best job I can, which he is going to probably listen to this one day because I told him I'd send it to him. But I'm going to butcher it and he's going to laugh. So it's Al Haris is in English, but it's not really a huh sound. It's a so it's Al Haris. But I can't say it correctly. So Al Haris is fine.
Great. So I was curious. I was figuring it was somewhere in the Middle East, but Jordan, I've never been to Jordan. That sounds like a cool place. Have you ever visited Jordan?
Many times I've been to Jordan. The best part about Jordan is, first of all, is their food. The people are super hospitable and warm. I always tell people when they watch the news, don't believe anything you hear, because I've been to several Middle Eastern countries and I've had nothing but the best experience. And I will tell you the good thing about the family that I'm married into, they were very accepting and they didn't care that I was a different faith, and that they were just so happy that I was part of their family. And it's just a really wonderful culture.
To start with, you mentioned I think it was your occupation really quickly, and being a digital nomad. Could you share a little bit more about exactly what you do, and more out of curiosity? And so if people want to connect with you, what is the thing that you do that might be interesting or something that somebody might reach out to you about?
Well, I do many things, Dan. My full-time job is actually for a corporate America job. It's called Sodexo. We're actually global. I'm a supplier diversity manager. I've recently become a digital nomad because of COVID. So, of course, COVID has been a very destructive virus. And however, the positive side, which not much to say there's anything positive about it, is it has given me the ability to not be really chained to a desk, which is my least favorite thing in the whole wide world. So because of the situation with my husband and my job, and because of COVID, this kind of converges one of those Venn diagrams. So I'm able to really work wherever I want to within the United States. So I was in Turkey for about a month and a half taking care of my husband. We met there because he has to have surgery. And then he had to go back to Jordan where his surgery got postponed. And I had to go back to America because I was out on FMLA. So based on that reasoning and having no home, I decided I was just going to drive out west. And so I took my time and headed out west. And I've been working from hotels and Airbnbs and now my parents' house in California. And soon I'll be house sitting up in Oregon. So when I say a digital nomad, that means I can work from anywhere within the United States. And I kind of like it a lot.
I love it. I think everybody who has the capability of working from wherever should do exactly what you're doing. I think you're a good inspiration for those people. One of the reasons that we invited you on our podcast, well, one, Ivy already knows you, and she invites on people she respects and likes. But really for our audience, we want to give them access to people they may never cross paths with in regular life, and allow them to hear a little bit of your story and what you do, because in the end they may just go, that was a good story, or they may hear you say something they've never heard before, maybe something that they've heard before but you say it differently or it connects with them in a different way. So really we're all about helping people live their best life through these podcasts and through these interviews. So I'm going to start with our first question of the night, which is, if I was a genie and I could grant you just one wish, what would be your wish and why? And let me give you a couple rules. One, you can't wish for more wishes. Two, you can't wish to become the genie or the wish giver. That's cheating the system. And the reason we ask this, I really am curious if there is something in your life that you're like, oh, that would be really cool, but it's too out of probability, or I tried and it didn't work out, something that I could just grant you with that one wish?
Okay, I thought long and hard about this because I could have thought about having the ability to be super smart or a genius or money. That stuff doesn't matter to me. I thought about this hard. So I thought if you were a genie, you can grant me one wish, I would wish that I could heal hearts and not take away the memory of the pain, because I think we grow from our pain. I mean, Lord knows I've had to do a lot of growth in the last 5 or 6 years from pain and trauma, but I would want to take the sting away so that they could heal their heart so they can move on, because long after someone's trauma, they still hold on to this pain and this anger and anxiety. And I would just love I would just love to be able to heal people's hearts.
So, Kristine, you just made one of our bucket list items come true. That's the Oprah effect, they call it, right? Like to get somebody to cry in an interview, and we got you to cry within 5 minutes, and we didn't even do anything to lead to that. So thank you for checking one of our bucket list items. We really appreciate that.
I hate to burst your bubble. This is everybody who knows me knows that this is like not that difficult, but I appreciate it, Dan.
Oh, I love you, Kristine. It's so great to bring you on and share your story. One of the things I'm most inspired about is how much you care about people and how much you care about your family. Who in your life has made the most impact and shaped you to the person you are today?
So while there's a lot of people that have affected me, including God himself, but I'm going to say my husband, my husband, because when he met me, I had lost everything except for my job. I had no home, no more family, not even my faith. I walked away from everything. I was very broken. And he healed me. He healed my heart. Now, I'm not saying it's been easy because it's not easy. But it's definitely, he's the person that makes me want to fight really hard to make sure that he's taken care of, that I'm taken care of. He helps give me more self-reliance and strength. And like I said, of course, I want to give most of the glory to God, but if I had to pick a human being, and I love my parents and they did a great job raising me, but he really is my inspiration to keep going.
So, Kristine, one of my favorite movies is Back to the Future. And I wish I had a time machine, but I don't. But if I could give you that time machine and you could travel back and you could visit your younger self and you could give them information to tell them about what the future is going to be like or what you've learned over time, what advice would you give them and why that advice?
I would tell her that she is worthy of everything that is good and that she's stronger than she thinks she is, to be proud of who she is. And then I would tell her to invest in Google, Apple, and Facebook.
You know what's funny about that is that goes back to the genie question of you saying, oh, I don't want money. But then you would use the time machine to tell yourself how to get money. That's so interesting.
I would tell her to invest. It doesn't mean she's going to get money. I would want her to learn how to invest, because I'll tell you what, that's the one thing that I wish that I try to teach even my daughter from my first marriage. I taught her at a very young age to how to have a budget, because when I was growing up, my parents were awesome, but they never showed us how to take care of our financial future, right? That was like, go outside and play, kids. We have to do, this is adult stuff. And they didn't teach you this stuff in school. So, all these years, I struggled with, credit. I'm still picking up myself from a foreclosure. Like, all this stuff could have been avoided if they just taught. It's not their fault, but if society had just learned to teach their children how to take care of themselves, not just, okay, good hygiene, you need to have a good spiritual self, you need to have empathy, but if you don't teach your children how to financially take care of themselves, then it makes their life much more difficult. I'm not looking to become a millionaire. I just would like to not have to be, I don't want money to be the thing that stresses me out, or stresses my husband out, because I'm not a big thing person. I'm not a big materialistic person. I literally, Dan, have one thing that I own is a Jeep. I don't technically own it right now, but, buying it. And that is because that gives us this adventure, right? But otherwise, I don't care about anything else. That material things don't matter to me. I just want to not have the stress of worrying about what I'm worrying about now. Like, right, if I had financial freedom, I wouldn't have to be here by myself. I could be whatever, creating something or having a photographer or having a life where I'm enjoying instead of being so focused on day to day how to survive. That's why I mean to invest. And it was half joking, but seriously.
No, I agree with you. In fact, there's been a lot of articles and based on studies that show that for people, it's not as much financial freedom as it is financial, not having financial worry. Like they've done where they figured out a threshold for people. It's like if you could cover certain base needs without stressing over them, then it would like alleviate that major concern, which is a big stressor for many people. And then that would allow you to pursue and just feel so much better about other areas of life. So I totally agree with that. What's also interesting is I've heard people say this, and I am in 100% agreement, which is that is what we should be teaching in school. I mean, we go down many paths on that, but it's like we get into all of these subjects that literally once you pass a certain grade level, you'll never use unless you get into a specialty thing, right? And even in college, I forget what they're called, the base curriculum, you know what I mean? Like the stuff that you have to take, the required classes. So many of those, it's like, if I'm majoring in X, why not just let me take X classes? Like, why do I have to do these other classes on the side? And I think whatever, we go forever. I think it's a way to make extra money for the colleges. But in either case, I totally agree with you. I think you're spot on with being able to have that information that like nobody's parents is out there teaching them because they don't even like they're struggling or figuring that out themselves because life is the teacher, right? We don't have these regular teachers. So we have life to teach us like, oh, don't do that again. Hopefully you have a chance to pass it on to someone else. So good answer to be able to pass it on to yourself with your time machine.
I do agree with you also about what you and Dan talked about with money mindset. That is not taught in school, and having the right mindset sets you up, having that framework will set you up to go about it differently. And I wish you do teach it in school. And I think the closest thing to that is like home economics, because that's where you learned how to do other life skills. But anyways, what is a habit or belief that have shaped you to who you are today?
I read the Bible daily. I pray and I meditate. Those are the things I do every day, no matter what. The other thing I do is I make sure first thing when I wake up in the morning, after I do those first three things, is I call my husband just to make sure we check about how's his day going, because he's 10 hours ahead of me. So he's had a full day ahead of him that I need to talk to him. And we're trying to figure out our meet point. The next time we're going to get together, is it going to be permanent? Trying to figure out our future. That's something I do every day. I also have started journaling in the last month because I find that I am very emotional from, being so separated all the time, that it does help a lot to put all my feelings into words instead of always coming out verbally, because it doesn't always come across correctly, right? It comes off, but instead when you're writing it down, then it's just for you, for me, nobody else is going to read it. So I can put whatever I want in there. So I think those are good habits to do. I think the other good habit that I started doing is just reading every day. I love reading, but I'm trying to read something for pleasure, but then also something that's going to help me. Or if I can't read, then believe it or not, I get on TikTok and I don't watch the dances or the silly things or the tutorials, but there's a lot of people who have a lot of skills on financial freedom and side hustles and all this. And even if I don't take everything, I learn something new every day. I write it down, I research it. So every day I'm trying to learn something new so that I can figure out how I can be, again, it's not about I don't care about being rich. I just want to be able to, it would be great if I can make passive income. Like, that's how I look at it. Like, I'm still going to work my job, but how great would that be to have passive income? So for me, I'm always trying to learn how I can free myself of anxieties and worry. So those are the things that I do every day. I pray, I read the Bible, meditate, call my husband. I either read something or I watch something that I can learn from.
If you were sentenced to life in prison and the warden said, guess what, Kristine, I'm going to give you one book to put in your cell the rest of your time here on earth, but it can't be the Bible, because here's the thing. We interview everybody, and I'll tell you, 90% of people say the Bible, and you already said it. So I'm going to challenge you to come up with,
Okay.
you get the Bible as a default. So now you have to come up
Okay.
with something else.
There's a book that I read every year, and it's not even that like scholarly of a book, but I love it. Every year I read it, The Pelican's Brief. It is one of my favorite books. So if I only could have one book besides the Bible, that's the one I would have. It's a great book.
So do you also enjoy the movie?
I thought the movie wasn't bad. Of course, I love that, like it changed my spectrum of what I think the characters look like. And now when I read it, I see those characters. I'm a very visual person. When I read a book, it's not just reading. It's like I'm in the story. I'm with them. I zone out. I tell people all the time, if I'm reading a book and I'm into it, I can't hear you scream fire. You have to physically touch me, because it's like I'm in the story. I get so absorbed. It's better than a movie for me, is reading a book.
Have you ever done hypnosis?
No.
You would do really well with hypnosis, because just the way you describe those things right there means that you're really able to go into your imagination. So if you're ever curious, I'm a certified hypnotherapist. I'm happy to let you experience hypnosis and see what it's like.
I'm a little worried about having my mind open. I'm always afraid of what's going to go in.
Your mind, well, here's the thing. Your mind is already open, and you can ask Ivy her experience.
Yes, it is an incredible experience. And I would highly recommend it if you haven't experienced it before. But yes, just the way you were describing how you get so immersed in a story, you've already on some level gotten yourself self-hypnotized in that experience, because you're not aware of time when,
Nope,
right?
exactly.
Exactly. So now I'm curious, what is one of your biggest failures, and what did you learn from it, and how did you overcome it?
So, I mean, I have failed a lot in my life, but I look at failures now. Like, if you'd asked me this question in 2014, I would have told you at that moment that was my biggest failure, when I walked away from God and let myself go to a place I wasn't going to go. But if I say that, then it's like I'm regretting what I have now. So I look at this as like, I wouldn't have known or understood God all my life. I did the right thing because I wanted to do the right thing, and I had a great life. But I never really, like, to know what God's love is for me is after I failed, and it took me 4 or 5 years to get back on my feet again to be there. Like I really felt God's love at that point. Like I knew what it felt like. Like, unfortunately, the world that we live in today, the system that we live in today, I mean, we all make mistakes, right? So, but until you make something where it's devastating, where you lose everything, you really don't appreciate until you come back and you really feel that love, right? And that goes for even family and friends who waited patiently for me to snap out of it, right? So I don't want to look at anything like it's a big failure, because I'm here. A big failure means I'm never going to come back from that situation. So I can't look at it like that. I look at it like, okay, I failed, but I got back up. And every failure could be considered big or small, because at the end of the day, once you heal yourself and you're moving forward, well, that failure was just a way for you to grow. And again, the person I'm with now, I would never have met him if I hadn't had my failure, right? So to me, it's like I don't look at it as a failure. It's just it was a growing point for me. I fell, I got back up. It just took me a little longer than I wanted to, but I I think that kind of answered the question. I'm not sure. Like, I think that is definitely the biggest thing, losing everything. But at the same time, I gained so much afterwards. So I don't know if I don't want to hurt my family that I hurt, but I don't want to hurt my future, the present that I'm at now. So I don't know. I'm thankful for what I have now, for the failure that I created. Does that make
That's an
sense?
awesome, yes, that is a beautiful answer. I wanted to follow up with, how are you living your life without regrets?
Well, let's see here. It took me a couple years to really move on and not feel that. And also, thankfully, everybody, including my ex-husband, was very forgiving and understanding. And once I, decided to be where I needed to be, and with the help of my current husband, like helping me to become a strong person and to be self-reliant, then, getting back, walking back to where I needed to be, and then having my family and friends back in my life, you know, it, it meant everything.
So it's clear from some of your answers that you are now a student of finance. So on that journey to learn and make better decisions in that area, what have you heard that you're like, ooh, that is bad advice? If you hear that, don't fall for it. Here is the better advice to take instead of that.
Yeah, I definitely think don't fall for every scam or everything that seems like, oh, this is a great side hustle. This is a great, no, do your research, like listen to it, save the information, research it. I think growing up, it was bad advice. I mean, I didn't get bad advice so much as I didn't ask the right questions. Like I'll be honest with you, if someone tries to give me bad advice, I just look at them and I'm like, this isn't something my ex-husband taught me to say. That's nice, or that's an idea, but then do whatever you want to do, right? So I'm trying to think of the worst advice I got. Well, perfect example. I went to college later in life, and I regret listening to the person that helped me go down that path because they did not help me. They only caused me to be in a huge amount of debts, and I never end up. I have almost all my credits, but I never finished because at the end I was so stressed out from working a full-time job, having a family. That was one of the things that kind of broke me. I I now tell kids. I used to belong to this. I volunteered for this program called the 720, which is 720 days from ninth grade to 12th grade, and I got to pick the three subjects, and one of them was creditworthiness, college, and social media. And when I told them about college, I said, if you do not have the money to go to school, don't kill yourself and go broke by getting these high loans to go to a big fancy school, a party school, whatever. No, go to community college for 2 years and then transfer onto the school you want to. You're still going to get that same degree from that same school, but you're not going to be as much debt. Try to get good grades, et cetera, so you can try to offset the costs. So the worst advice I ever got was I had to have a degree. I had to do this, but they didn't give me the right path. And now I'm still like in debt, right? Because I'm still trying to pay off the school loan. So that was the worst advice, bad advice I ever got. And I always try to help people to avoid that now. Like if you don't have people to help pay for it, if you can't get scholarships, go to 2-year school, then transfer. You're still going to get that same fancy degree, but for a lot less money.
That is very sound advice and practical. Something I do appreciate you about, because you have such a creative mind, and it's so cool to see how you figure things out. I mean, just this year alone, you've been bouncing around the world, literally. So you being a nomad is true. And where do you see yourself 5 years from now?
Okay, 5 years from now. Oh, I love this question. I love this question so much. I see myself and my husband and our dog and our Jeep traveling the world. So he is unable to come back into the U.S., but thankfully we've done almost all the states. I've seen every state except for Alaska, and he's been to almost every state except for Alaska and a few other southern states. But I foresee us both having independent careers where we're having our own businesses, which I'm trying to figure out what we need to do, or we have these virtual jobs where we can work wherever. But my goal is to have us together, having adventures, and having said that we've been on every continent. That is where I see myself in 5 years. Happy, content, on the road, being thrown in the ditch with my husband. I love the idea of just not having to be anywhere unless we want to be there.
So from everything you've learned on your journey of life so far, if you had to summarize it in just a short piece of advice, what advice would you give the listening audience to help them live their best life?
You have to learn to love yourself before you can love anybody else. And you have to trust your gut. I always tell people the brain and the heart are always at war, but your gut always tells you the truth. So trust your gut. Try not to lean on yourself all the time, because if you lean on your own understanding, you're going to be flawed, right? Because we're not perfect. We have imperfect thoughts. So try to find higher advice, whether it's God, whether it's through somebody not religious, but it could be someone scholarly. It's not somebody who's wiser than you, right? Because none of us can say that we're the wisest person. And take every advice that you ask with a grain of salt. Do with what you want. I just always tell people to go gently, gentle on yourself, because when you're not gentle on yourself, your life is, you make your life more difficult when you're hard on yourself, because you are the most difficult critic that you're going to have around you. So that's my advice. And also just to be wise with, like I said, my life is not really about finance. It's going to sound like it is, but be wise with with what you spend your money on. There's nothing wrong with having things that's a normal thing. People want things, but don't let those things absorb who you really are. Find out what you really love, what your passion is, and go for it.
What is a question that we should have asked you that we didn't ask?
I had a few disabilities growing up that I probably still have it. I've just overcome most of the time. I stutter. I'm a stutterer. It took 12 years of speech therapy to get me where I'm at now, which is another reason why it's very difficult for me to learn to speak Arabic, because there's sounds that I don't make in our language. And so therefore, when I get anxious or excited, I stutter. The other thing was called integration, where explained to me when I was 15, when they finally figured it out, which is when my grades went from not so great to much better, is where I get it all in my head, but from the brain to the hand, there's a disconnect. So sometimes it can be challenging. So that's why I'm not an auditory learner. I'm visual and kinesthetic, because if I touch it, play with it, see it, I can learn anything. But if you're just expecting me to listen and you're not interesting, I'm going to go through one ear and out the other.
If people listening or watching this would like to connect with you, first off, would you want them to? And next, if they decided to reach out to you, what's the best way to find you or reach out to you?
I do have 2 Instagrams that are open, because I'm starting a travel blog on IG, which is called @alharis_global, ALHARIS_global. They can always DM me there. Anybody who wants to ask questions about my digital life where I'm moving around, they're going to see the pictures of the places I've been since starting this journey.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Kristine. It was such a pleasure having you on our podcast. We appreciate your time.